John, you're welcome.
Adrian, how
You've
you
just
doing?
appeared from the gods.
Owen. I've watched 9 hours of golf, lads.
Good.
So I'm pretty
well,
tired.
that's why you're here.
Actually, I just couldn't stop. It's the first time I've ever watched a full round on day one of one person. It was like...
Were you grazing? Were you eating biscuits?
Oh, completely grazing, obviously.
Yeah, no grazing.
4 packs
No
of chocolate.
grazing whatsoever.
Business.
Cups of tea.
Business.
No,
Lockdown.
no
Lockdown.
taking.
How did he manage to do that? I don't know. But like...
Discipline.
When it comes to...
Jordan Spieth style discipline.
When it comes to selected groups on the Thursday, it's like one of the most... the least appealing part of the Masters, despite the fact that it's still quite appealing. But yesterday, Tiger, I'm sure it was one of the most watched selected groups on a Thursday of all time.
Yeah, I was watching that red button, which is great because you don't have all these features that they sometimes do. So I was just watching Woods in kind of peace until Rory started. And Woods was a little bit erratic, but you can't really blame him. 3 years since he had a Masters appearance, and I think he did very well to get a 73. He made a really good bogey actually on 12, a putt that went in, and then he had a couple of birdies coming home. So I think his 73, I think it's understandable that he'd be a little bit off. I think it's a miracle that he's actually there competing at this stage, at the Masters. So
in some ways, John, is it like people tend to talk about Tiger Woods about the ultimate glory days where he couldn't hit a shot wrong, but in some ways was what he was playing yesterday almost more typical of what Tiger Woods is about in terms of not always being 100% off the tee, but having the capacity to actually make amends once it goes wrong.
Yes, and people got to remember that he hasn't won a major in 10 years. He's 42 years of age now. It's not what it was in 2000, 2001. So I think he did very well to come home the way he did. If you're a little bit off at Augusta, there's just so much talent out there. There's such a depth of talent. And we saw that yesterday with the amount of good rounds we had. I think there were 20 players under par. So Jordan Spieth, 66. Jordan, welcome Dermot. Jordan Spieth, 66. In 2015, he shot 64 and then 66. And he was 5 shots clear at halfway and it was over.
What's happened is putting, John, of late, of the last year or so, it seems to have just gone to pieces. And there was a comment from him this week saying over the last couple of weeks the magic is back. He said his putting stroke is back, which I suppose is the most frightening thing of all, because he gets his putting going. I'm guessing it's only going to be one winner if he can hold him out the pussy.
I think it's just good memories. Kenny, I mean, he turned up at his first Masters, was tied second. Then he won, as I said, easily with an 18 under par total. Then he blew a 5-shot lead and Danny Willett won, and then
remember that,
last year he was 11. So I just think everything for me with Jordan Spieth is about winning that Open last year when he nearly blew it against Matt Kuchar, and then he recovered to win the Open. He's won 3 of the 4 Grand Slams, and I think having blown the Masters the way he did, I think if he'd blown the Open last year, I think he'd definitely have mental scars. But now I think he just gets positive memories. He walks up to the first tee after coming up Magnolia Lane, and I just think he just, I call him Will Spieth, because he's got that competitive drive to will the ball into the hole, and he has that X factor that I haven't seen since Tiger Woods in his pomp, that you just know that Jordan Spieth can conjure things that other golfers can't, and the only other golfer really in the field that I can see conjuring something over the next few days is Rory.
Jordan Spieth obviously leads the way on 6 under par. He's 2 shots clear. Tony Finau, who many thought wasn't even going to get to the starting line, incredibly, he's very much in the mix alongside Matt Kuchar on 4 under par, and it's another shot back to the rest of the field, which includes our own Rory McIlroy. And I'm delighted to say, as John mentioned, we are joined on the line by Dermot Gilleece of the Sunday Independent. Good morning to you, Dermot, and thanks for taking our call. Needless to say, we kick things off with chat about Tiger Woods. Showed some of the Tiger that we've kind of come to know and love-ish. He hasn't played himself out, Dermot, is maybe the key point here.
No, I mean, 73 wasn't bad considering he didn't play well. I mean, let's get that out of the way first. You know, I mean, it was an acceptable comeback, I imagine, from his point of view. I mean, it must have seemed a bit strange to him. I mean, he hadn't played the Masters since 2015, and he's not quite competitive yet at that level, I imagine. But still, I would expect him to be in the mix. I mean, I would certainly expect him to make the cut, which is an achievement in itself.
Yeah, what are you expecting about Jordan Spieth? We've just had a little bit of a conversation about him as well, and like, is it 7 consecutive rounds he's led? Is that a record? I think I heard one of the commentators make mention of it yesterday. This guy is absolutely incredible, and on 6 under par, Dermot, I mean, there was some talk in terms of the previews that the winning score was going to be maybe 9 or 10. He's already more than halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, that was an astonishing finish yesterday by any standards. What I saw at the 18th, that bogey, I mean, it's hard to imagine any other player having the capacity to conjure up that sort of a finish. I mean, he was nowhere. He was totally out of it after his drive, buried it left. Can only pitch out onto just on the edge of the fairway, actually. Didn't even make the fairway. And then he has something like 240, I think. But Paul McGinley described it extremely well, I thought. You know, that his course management was unbelievable in that situation, in that he had the presence of mind to figure out how he was going to make no worse than a 5 there, you know. And we saw the third shot pulled left of the green, but it was left rather than right. He'd have had no chance from the right, and from the left, I mean, he just made the most beautiful up and down for a bogey. It must have been hugely satisfying for him.
Yeah, for sure. And when that putter's on fire, Dermot, there's no stopping Jordan Spieth. And it almost gets to the point here, and I'm not sure if you agree with this, where the rest of his game, those unbelievable recovery shots like on 18 yesterday, is there a sense that the rest of his game gets underrated to a certain extent because he's so bloody good with the putter when he's on?
Well, that's true up to a point. But, I mean, if you consider from a European perspective, I mean, the great winners at Augusta, I mean, I'm thinking of players like Seve and Langer and Olazabal and Faldo, and those guys, like, I mean, they've 9 Masters between them. Now, the key in their game was pitching and putting. I mean, Langer kept repeating this. I mean, anybody asked him, you know, what's the key at Augusta? And most people talk about the putting. But he talked about pitching, because you're going to miss greens. And Langer was a wonderful long putter, but he was also a terrific pitcher and chipper of the ball. And you look at the great players. Tiger had it. I mean, what do we remember most about Tiger's 4 Masters wins? It's the pitch into the hole at the 16th in 05, you know, that wonderful shot where the ball stops on the lip of the hole and then drops in. We tend to forget, there's so much emphasis on the speed of the greens and the difficulty of putting on those greens, that we tend to forget that the real key is pitching and chipping. And Jordan Spieth has that in spades. I mean, we saw it, as I say, last night, particularly with the ease with which he pitched, 18 inches from the hole at the last. I think that's it's an overlooked, sometimes overlooked part of his game because of the quality of his putting. But he really has a wonderful short game, and he's not bad from tee to green either. You know, I mean, it's not as if he scratches it around like Ben Crenshaw used to do. He's a decent player tee to green, but he has a wonderful, wonderful short game.
Yeah, Rory, there's shades of Rory in that, obviously, John, as well. And there was a good snapshot of him yesterday in 13. He goes along with his approach, makes a wonderful up and down for a birdie, and cracks on. Like, I wonder from both of you, Dermot, John, like whether, because the constant conversation about Rory is that his A game, nobody can beat his A game when it's on. And I kind of wondered from the evidence yesterday whether both of you thought this was his A game or his B game.
No, what I thought about Rory was that, well, first of all, it was his best round since 2011 when he nearly won, when he shot that 80 in the final round. I think he played very well. He didn't really make anything happen, but he played the par 5s well. I think he was 3 under par for the par 5s. He missed a couple of putts, missed a putt on 6, missed a putt on 10. His driving was excellent. But then I was really impressed with his putting down the stretch. That up and down on 13, he said it was his best up and down all year. He made a good par save on 16. He made a very good par save on 17. And a bit like Jordan, he was left of the flag on 18 and then got up and down. And I think he'd be very happy with his round. And I think it'd give him a lot of confidence, especially with that putting after work he did with Brad Faxon, that he can go out and do something today. They're both out about after 3 o'clock Irish time, and I think the later starters got the better of it yesterday, and I think that Rory's proximity to Jordan Spieth is going to be very important at the end of the day.
Right, in that he needs to be near him.
Needs to be near him.
His coattails,
Yeah, I think so.
What do you think, Dermot?
Yeah, I think a very important element of Rory's game yesterday was that he'd only one bogey, which was on the 7th. In the past, Rory has been hurt badly by stupid mistakes, dare I say. I agree that he's up against it against Spieth, but it's a very interesting contrast between the two players. I mean, there's no question but that Rory is the far superior player tee to green. But as I was saying earlier, I mean, I wonder how much of an advantage can he make that at Augusta. He can certainly make it a big advantage on the par fives. But yes, I mean, Spieth really kick-started his effort yesterday with an eagle at the 8th, which is one of the more difficult par fives. So I think at the moment, the way Spieth is putting, that he has a clear edge even over Rory because of the emphasis that Augusta places on the short game, on pitching, chipping, chipping and putting.
Yeah, well, I would think that obviously there's a lot of other players in the loop. Matt Kuchar, model of consistency at Augusta. Maybe has lacked the bottle to win possibly major tournaments. I would agree with that, yeah. 4 under par, Tony Finau, that was a miracle story. Yeah. I think he just played with freedom after that ankle injury to finish on 4 under par. Patrick Reed has been playing well, he's 3 under. Hao Tong Lee, what a story that is. Masters debut, playing once again with a carefree attitude. Hao Tong Lee, 3 under par. Cabrera Bello, 3 under. Adam Hadwin, who's been playing well from Canada, 3 under par. Henrik Stenson, never really had a good Masters record. I don't think he's had a top 10, but of course he's a major champion now in 3 under. And then Phil Mickelson, Ricky Fowler, 2 under par. They both finished very well last night. Dustin Johnson was disappointing. Justin Thomas, who's probably been the informed player in the world, 2 over par, he was disappointing. And then of course, how can we forget Sergio Garcia doing a tin cup on it?
We haven't. We've been debating it all morning.
You know, so at 13, what the Masters can give it, they can take it away.
Yeah. But the Finau thing is very interesting, and I saw him speaking to Scott Van Pelt afterwards and saying that the injury, the pain, was on a 10 on a 1 to 10 scale just the day beforehand, obviously, when he dislocates the ankle, and that it actually just focused him a little bit more, that he kind of had to think suddenly about the course a hell of a lot more because he wanted to think about anything except for that excruciating ankle, which I thought was very, very interesting. So he could certainly be a contender if he keeps this up, as long as the pain doesn't remove that focus from it. But there's just one other thing I want to pick you up on, Dermot, and it is the question about the par fives, because it has been a huge thing, particularly when it comes to Tiger. You look at his record down through the years on the par fives, and it's essentially what made him so dominant at Augusta during his pomp. And like, what do you think in terms of pin positions? I wonder, could the par fives become more of an advantage for Rory McIlroy, as you've already outlined, over the next couple of days? Are the pin positions going to get easier, where this could become a big advantage for somebody who hits it longer off the tee?
Well, I mean, length off the tee has always been an advantage at Augusta. I mean, it was there with Nicklaus, who won there 6 times, and if you look, and you alluded to Tiger and how far he hit the ball. I mean, during the 1990s, I mean, himself and John Daly were the only 2 players who were hitting the ball over 300 yards, driving it over 300 yards. So there's no doubt that it is an advantage, particularly at the par fives. But the pin placements are fairly predictable. I mean, we have a good idea even now in the finishing holes like that, where the pin's going to be on 16, for instance. It's going to be back left, and on 18 it'll be forward left, and stuff like that. So the players know what they're going to get. But what I thought was particularly interesting listening to Rory last night was that he was, now he's played every year at Augusta since 2009, and even at that, he said he was amazed at the difference in the greens on Thursday as opposed to the practice days. And I was smiling to myself because Nick Faldo used to talk about that you practice at Augusta for, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and next thing you go out Thursday morning, and the first thing you notice is there's a sort of a brown hue off the greens that you hadn't seen earlier in the week. Whatever they do on Wednesday night, and I suspect is that they suck moisture out of the soil and just firm them up to the extent that they're maybe the whole course is a couple of shots more difficult than it was during practice. But I thought it was particularly interesting, as I say, because the first thing you think about it at Augusta in terms of players challenging to win it is experience, except obviously in the case of Spieth in 15. But even with experience that Rory has, he was still shocked by this, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, and there's no way, I mean, on that point, there's no way they're going to let Jordan Spieth win this tournament, lads, on 24 under par. Like, the organisers are not going to allow that to happen.
Well, I mean, I think bad weather is coming on Saturday. Thunderstorms and a lot of wind as well. So that's in the forecast. Dermot will know better than that. But yeah, it's interesting. In 2015, he, as I said, 64. He followed with the 66. It was over. But in the year he lost to Danny Willett, he followed a 66 with a 74. Last year, he had 2 75s. I think Jordan was a little bit, at times, he was a little bit out of position yesterday, and he can be a little bit jumpy. We saw that at the Open when he really had the Open in the bag and then nearly contrived to throw it away and then regained it and played brilliantly to win. So I don't think it's over yet, but I think a lot will depend on what Jordan Spieth. He really kind of controls the tournament at the moment. But a lot will depend. If he doesn't play well today, it'll let a lot of players back in. And I think if somebody around 300 par can shoot 67, 68, I think it'll make it very difficult for those over par. Yeah,
his card wasn't without its flaws, Dermot, as well. I don't know if that gives a bit of hope to the rest of the field, but just on the evidence of day one, have you changed your thinking, or what are you thinking now in terms of who's going to win this thing?
Well, I mean, to be honest, although Spieth was he was tied third in Houston, I really didn't expect what I saw yesterday. You know, I really didn't. I fancied Rory. To be honest, I thought Justin Thomas would be a very strong contender. And I thought Tiger would possibly do a little better than he did. But I think Spieth has changed everything. You know, if he continues to putt as he does, I mean, I love the reference to him being jumpy. It describes him perfectly. You know, that sometimes he can lose control of situations, which is really strange given how strong his course management generally is. You know, but I think if he continues putting as he did yesterday, I mean, it's very difficult to see him being beaten, because, as I said earlier, it's not just putting, it's allied to a wonderful short game generally, and generally at Augusta, that's an irresistible combination generally.
Yeah. All right, well, look, enjoy it over the weekend. Dermot, thanks a million for taking our call.
Thank you.
Dermot Gilleece of the Sunday Independent there. John, what are you thinking of the evidence of day one?
Well, I was all about Rory yesterday in the preview, and I'm still about Rory. Rory hasn't got it going yet. I think there'll be one of the rounds when Rory gets it going, and if he can limit the mistakes the rest of the time, he's driving the ball so well that I think he might be able to shoot a 66, 65 in one of the remaining 3 rounds, and that could be enough.
I guess the rain tomorrow the timing of the rain is going to be absolutely crucial.
Yes.
Because obviously Spieth, and you'd imagine Rory as well, are going to be going out quite late in the day. Does that actually, so say hypothetically, we go into tomorrow and Spieth and Rory are joint leaders, they'll be the last group out. Does that, is that working in Rory's favour, or does it work in Jordan Spieth's favour? Because he's such a good putter, like, does he prefer the greens just being like marble floors because he likes everybody else getting screwed over by them, whereas he gets screwed over less by them?
I think if the rain comes, I think first of all, look, it's only one round. I think, you know, there's so many talented players there that the whole story could flip again. We don't know yet. I mean, but if it is a case with Spieth and McIlroy are in the final group on Saturday, I think ball striking actually becomes more important in the match play situation, because if, like we saw with Sergio Garcia and Justin Rose last year, if you keep striping the ball down the middle of the fairway, it does put doubt into the player's mind. And that's what we saw when Jordan Spieth blew it against Willett. He was saving birdies and par all the time with his putting, but eventually that malfunctioned. So I think the long game does matter in a more head-to-head situation.
Yeah, it must be intimidating if you're going up against McIlroy though, and you, like, I know Spieth doesn't have that mental weakness clearly, as you've already outlined. The Open last year really proved that. But just seeing him absolutely smash it off the tee.
It's PlayStation stuff.
It is. Yeah. And the crowd going wild for him, and he's going 50 yards ahead of you. Okay, 50 yards is an exaggeration when it comes to Jordan Spieth, but in some cases it could happen. And if you didn't have the mental strength of somebody like Jordan Spieth, you're looking at this guy's driving and you're like, shit, I cannot compete with this.
Yeah, but also with Rory, every time Rory misses an opportunity, like the 10th yesterday, the hardest holes in the golf course, and he had a short enough putt for a birdie and he didn't make it, that puts doubts in his mind. That's why I was so impressed with this finish.
But John, could you not flip that round? You're talking about maybe psychologically, potentially McIlroy putting the squeeze on Spieth in a head-to-head situation, driving at 40, 50 yards, how that can crunch an opponent. But likewise, you could flip it in terms of Spieth. If he's hitting, not finding fairways, but constantly getting around the green, chipping and putting, psychologically, the damage that can do to someone like a McIlroy who's constantly hitting fairways, making the greens, but just can't shake this fella. You just can't shake him. You know, he's not striking the ball as long as you, he's not as accurate as you, but you're still a shot behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, that can damage you as well.
You're feeling perfect almost because your striking is so good.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yet
exactly.
You're scoring worse than
but
him.
this fella's scratching his ways round. He's somehow finding those putts continuing. I would imagine that kind of psychologically can damage you as well, like just as easily.
He had 5 of the row yesterday in the back 9, and I think already for the field, correctly as you say, Kenny, it's already in people's heads. So in a way, it is up to Jordan Spieth to decide how this is going to go in terms of halfway.
I really hope he doesn't it's.
Don't run away with it.
Exactly. Now that might sound in hindsight. When
we want the drama. You've got
to have a bit of drama.
I don't think there's too many good players there, John. I think it's an amazing field, isn't it? In terms of the strength, the quality. You can generally pick a half a dozen, but this year you could have 15, 20 players. Like in terms of the quality in the field, would you agree, or more so than most years?
It's hard to come from behind at the Masters. I don't think it's been done. I don't think somebody has come, I think, from outside the top 10 on the final day since 1959. So it is one of these courses that is hard to chase. Whereas I think some courses that people don't play that often, you might have stranger results. So I would agree with you. There is a lot of talent, a lot of great players on 3 under par there. You know, like Henrik Stenson, who's won a major championship. Matt Kuchar is a solid professional. Patrick Reed has been knocking on the door. Phil and Ricky, either of them could shoot 66 today and be 8 under par, and Jordan Spieth could shoot 73 and he'd be 5 under. So we just don't. It's a little bit too early to say, but the way the thing is beginning to evolve, we've seen this story before.
Tell me, Paul Casey's still in with it.
I actually, because in this 4 hours of just watching Woods, they were showing Casey as well, and he was all over the shop, unfortunately. So your money's done. Your money's done, Kenny.
I was literally just going to say, Kenny,
I'm giving you one of my names. That's it. I'm not giving you any more.
Striking the ball well.
I put him in my office 3 as well for 100 to 1. I had Paul Casey included.
John's killing me there.
John, thanks a million for coming in.
Okay, lads.
Great stuff. Really looking forward to it over the weekend. I have to say, I'm going to be glued to the TV for the next few days.